Welcome everybody to Urban Media Arts edition of the Prop 2 Override discussion. We are trying to do our part, much just like everybody else around the city is trying to educate the voters of Malden of what's going to be coming up on March 31st, which is the Proposition 2 2.5 override that is looming over the city right now. I'm joined by a few cross representatives of the community. We are, again, at UMA, and Urban Media Arts, we are trying to do our best as well in our part to make sure that everybody's voice is represented and also to educate the voters. So I'm going to start to my right. Joined on my right is Deb Giswaldo, the MEA president, or Malden Education Association president. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
On my other right is also Calvin Walker, representative of Mass Senior Action. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
On my left is, and I apologize if I mispronounce it, because I want to say Ghoul, Kenny Gill, right? Did I say that correctly? Right. Perfect. I mean, I'm not really good with the English language for some reason, even though I was born here. Mm-hmm. But Kenny Gill from the Malden Fire Department, thank you for being here. And joined with us on my other left is Kate Quinn from the Malden Public Library, and thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. And
thank you to everybody. I know I keep saying that, but thank you everybody. So just to give everybody just a little bit of context and just to, before we start and just kind of ease into the discussion, I guess I'll start with Deb. I'll start with you. Could you just describe your role and what you do here in the city of Malden?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a music educator who serves as president of the Malden Education Association, which is the union that represents education workers in the city.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Calvin, I'll turn to you and the same question as well.
Well, I hang out at Mass Senior Action because one of these days I'll get old and may need them. But so our main objective is to take the fight for more mature individuals, so it'll make life easy for them instead of it being harder after they retire in that respect, because they're not getting anything anymore or anything like that. And so if they have to go through changes, they need help in that respect, or stop the change, one of the two, so that's part of what we try to do.
Perfect. Thank you. Kenny, I'll ask you the same question as well.
Well, I'm the president of Malden Local 902. I have the honor of representing the men and women of the Malden Fire Department.
Thank you for everything that you do. And Kate, lastly with you.
I am the president of the Malden Public Library Union. I'm also our social media and marketing person, and just generally the Jill of all trades at the Malden Library. So that's me.
Thank you. And again, thank you guys for being here. And as you can see that we are joined by a very esteemed panel here. So I'm going to jump right into it. I guess one of the questions I do want to ask, and I'm going to kind of just skip down because I think a typical work day looks different, right? And I don't think that each day looks the same, but I mean, if you want to kind of tie it into your answer to the next question, feel free. But one of the questions I want to ask of everybody on this table, just so that people again have an opportunity to understand, what else goes on in the city that they may not see on a day-to-day basis. One of the questions I want to ask, and Kate, I think I'll start with you on this one. What is one service your department provides that the residents may not fully see or understand?
So many. Libraries in general, and the Malden Library especially, is really the sort of last stop for social services. So we are the people who get you your tax documents. We are the people who help fill out immigration paperwork. We are the people who give access to school registrations. Anything that has been cut from a budget, whether it's federal, state, local, falls on the library's shoulders. So our sort of job of providing information access extends essentially to social services. We're pretty much also the last space in the city, in the state, in the country where you can just literally sit without having to pay. So we are our primary job is the community hub. Everything you need, we do it probably.
Yeah, truly. Yeah, truly. That's again, I mean, every time I think of the library, I kind of have a little panic attack because I don't like to read books a lot. So my grandmother used to force me into that. So when I think of the library, I'm like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, but I didn't realize
it's not
that.
even books. I haven't seen a book in so long. I don't even know what it looks like.
Calvin, I'll jump over to you. Same thing. I know that you said that you basically, it sounds like you're an advocacy group for our mature population, but
Yes.
talk to me, tell me, I guess, what's one service, and I know you kind of touched about it a little bit in your introduction, but what's one service that your organization provides our residents, right, that people may not fully see or understand?
Well, as I said, you have older individuals, and they don't know how to or can't fight for themselves. So we have to go to the State House. We have to try to get bills passed. We have to try to make things happen so that it won't be a hardship for them. And then we also got to try to find out some of the things that they're experiencing so we know what to address and what we need to try to do. And that's our main objective, is to try to really make life easier for people who, they're retired, they're not going to get any more money, and so whatever they get, they have to make the most of it in that respect. And so that's what that's what you got to look at in that respect. And so we do our best to try to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure.
We have fun at doing it at the same time,
Yeah, of course. Well, as I say, right, I mean, you got to enjoy what you do, right?
Right,
Otherwise,
yes.
your heart won't be into it, right? Deb, I pose the same question to you, too. What's one thing that as a union, I think you could, again, and I should say too, I should have prefaced it by saying that in your multiple roles, of course, outside of also being an employee, but also being as the union leader, which I know that's not easy, coming from a union background myself, and knowing every day how there could be some other challenges on top of what you deal with on your everyday. But Deb, I pose that question to you, whether you're in your educator role or as the president of the MEA, what's one service, your department, or even as, I can't even phrase this too, even as your union provides to residents that they may not see, on the daily basis, or again, they may not understand?
Yeah, I think similar to the library, schools serve as a community hub, and our students get everything from dental checkups to eye exams. We make sure kids are fed, clothed, getting mental health services. We connect families to transitional services if they're housing insecure or unhoused. You name it, it happens in a school. And certainly in our role as members of a union, we are constantly feeding the community in general, not just our students and their families. We actually run a food pantry out of our union office.
Wow, that's impressive. That's great. Yeah. That's again, something I think about back to my formal days of being a student and how I wanted to play sick all the time, and right. So obviously, again, as an outsider looking in, you don't realize, and I think so far from what we've heard from everybody, I think that as a resident that either uses some of the services, has been a part of some of these systems, right, using the library, being a part of the Malden public education system. I'm many, many years away from being a mature population person, but I know that I feel like I'm quickly getting there. But you don't realize that how much of these services are really vital and important to a community such as this, and especially being in the city, right? So, and Kenny, I end with you on the same question, and I know that obviously, of course, we hear Malden Fire Department, and we always think that it's the gentleman, or the people who are, I shouldn't say the gentleman, excuse me, the people who are saving the cat out of the tree for the person.
Still get those calls.
You still get those calls. So, I pose that question to you too as well, as the union president and also as a member of the Malden Fire Department as well. What are just some things outside of putting out fires, outside of helping people get their cats out of trees? What is something that the residents of Malden, they don't see on a daily basis or fully understand?
Well, when you call 911 and you have a medical aid, we respond to all medicals in the city. We do lift assists where some of the seniors that live alone, we help them up if they fall in the middle of the night. We do lockouts, lock-ins.
Which is what, if you don't mind me asking?
So a lockout is if you get locked out of your apartment,
okay,
and you live in a city building, we respond and let you in.
Okay.
We also do walk-ins. If you're stuck in someplace, we let you out.
Could have used you when I was 5. I locked myself in my bathroom. My grandfather had to come from Somerville and come get me out. That's a true story.
That's your punishment for locking yourself in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But, we do, excuse me, we do a lot of stuff with the community. We do, the Fire Safety Week. We were one of the advocates that actually just passed the Social Security for people with pensions. We go to DC and advocate for many different things. and if someone needs help, no matter what it is, we're normally there.
Nice.
So I mean, I thought we were the Swiss Army knife of Malden, but it seems like the teachers and libraries got that covered also.
Yes. Well, I think everybody, to a certain right, everybody's got the Swiss Army component to it.
I mean, nowadays it's do more with less.
Correct.
And if this passes, we're going to do a lot more with less.
Right.
And a lot of those services that I just talked about might be on the shopping block.
Yeah.
So why don't we jump right into that, because that's a perfect segue, and I think I'm going to stick with you, Kenny, on this one. What pressures are you currently facing at the Malden Fire Department? Is it staffing? Is it rising costs? Is it demands? You talked about the services doing like more with less.
So, since 1980, we found out.
1980 is 2.5, and 1981 is when the cuts came down.
So in 1981, we were at 154. We had 6 stations, and now, many moons later, we have 108 firefighters, 3 stations, and we do about just under 12,000 calls a year, roughly anywhere from 50 to 60 a day, and that could range from a cat in a tree to someone having cardiac arrest or a fire. Our struggle is manning. Staffing, the correct political way to say it. Right before this 2.5 override was put on my desk, I asked the mayor to put 11 more positions on. Right now, we're getting a lot of pressure from our state, local union, and our state union and the international that they want 4 members on every piece. There's a lot of signed data out there that says that the jobs can be done more efficiently and faster, and when seconds count, that's what you need. And so if we are cut the 15 positions that they're projected to cut, we don't know if it's going to be a truck or an engine yet. The truck meaning a ladder truck. But if it is an engine, you could be waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes to see one of us walk through your door.
Wow. And so there was something you said I kind of want to follow up a little bit. You said that you are currently, there's 108.
108.
Comparative to other surrounding communities around here, and I'm excluding Boston, but with other communities, Medford, Everett, Melrose, Revere, how many people do you know off the hand, I should ask, of how many full-time they have?
I have a better answer to that question. So out of all the cities and towns around us, some are staying flat, meaning they're not adding or subtracting, but a lot of like Everett, Revere, Lynn have all added a station and added men and women to the fire service. They realize that it's time, and members that are on a fire scene, the more members you have, you can complete more tasks at the same time. So if you have to go into, say, if we do cut a position or to cut a whole engine company, then you're not going to be able to do the same things you were, so they're going to be systematically done, which gets the fire hotter, and it's going to go into more rooms and burn faster. So your property loss is going to go up, which then entiles your ISO rating is going to go down.
ISO meaning?
It's an insurance term, meaning, so right now we're at a 2, the low end of a 2, and if it would drop to a 3, there is a potential that your homeowner's insurance will go up.
All right, thank you for, just Gary, thank you for clarifying that, in case anybody was like, in search of what? Yeah, so. Deb, I'm going to turn to you. I mean, obviously, we were, how should I say this? 10 years ago, we were obviously in the same boat, right? We were facing the same things when I was on the school committee at that time.
Yes.
And so, I know that obviously 10 years, a lot has changed, obviously, but it feels like the same, and I think I feel safe in saying this, that the same stuff that was facing the school system when I was on is still, if not more, right? And so I turn that same question to you. What pressures are you currently facing right now as a public school system?
I think something we all have in common, and we certainly have in the public school system, and going back, you said like 10 years, I think you were hearing this from us then, is that we are actually not fully staffed. And I know that the school budget takes up the largest percentage because we're the largest department, but even so, we actually don't have enough adults to serve our students. We just don't have enough of what we need. And we've had some really great members who are statisticians, basically, who have done the numbers, and you would have to basically take the entire staff of Melrose High School and plunk them into Malden High School for Malden High School to be fully staffed, just to give a concrete example. So while we have several hundred folks working in the public schools, it's actually not enough for the number of students we have and the needs that they come to us with.
And so let me ask you, so, and kind of very similar, trying to ask Kenny the same question too. In comparison to other school districts, are we in the same boat as everybody else, or are we kind of, is it, without saying too much that would, put you, trying not to put you in a bad light, but
No, of
just
course.
for anybody, right? I mean, like, are we, in comparison to the other districts around us, how do we compare in that respect?
If we look at comparably sized districts, we're understaffed.
Yeah.
We're understaffed, and there's no way around that.
Scary. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Calvin, I pose that question to you. Obviously, the questions will be a little different. Not say a little different, but what are the current pressures that you're facing, as well as, with the Mass Senior Action Group? Obviously, you had mentioned earlier that you're trying to help, our mature population basically not run out of money, in a sense, right? I mean, I think I'm kind of given a very general summarization of what you were saying, but I mean, what are some of the demands and what are some of the pressures that you're facing, your group?
Well, the thing about it is that you have everything that you would need and do, that's what they need and do. And now, how do they get that if they don't have the means, or the price goes up, then they can't access that service in that respect. And so that's what you have to look at ways that we can make things happen for them in that regard. Because here it is, you work a great deal of your life, and now you're no longer working, and so you're dependent upon whatever you can get. And things cost more when you retire in that respect. Before you retire, you had the insurance, you had this, you had that. Once you retire, you no longer have that, but yet you're still required to be able to come up with that, as well as if somebody gets a different coverage from somebody else, well, that cuts out some of the benefits they could have got, thinking that they was going to do it was for the better. And so you have to make people aware, have to do things that will help them as much as possible in terms of be able to do the things they can do comfortably without it, almost in a sense, interfering with their lives, in that respect. Because people, you don't want somebody to become a recluse, because a lot of places that have elderly individuals in it, they require them to come downstairs to eat or something like that, because if they stay upstairs and something happens, nobody checks or anything like that, and they're gone. So they force them to try to come out and do stuff and things like that. Well, we're trying to make sure that they can do stuff and that they can do it comfortably and everything like that. They don't have to second guess and saying, no, I can't afford that. Or even to the point of going shopping and all like that, You need help in everything that you do. It's sad when they're in a house and they're going to get fined because they didn't shovel their snow or something like that. They're not that spry in order to do those things. So there's a lot of things, but we have to get to where they're at to find out these things so that we can address them, whatever way we can. And some of those things require us to pass laws, pass legislation, go down and fight for them and speak up in that regard. And that's the only thing we can do in that respect. And we try to make sure we do our job, because we're all going that way, in that respect. If we're all living and doing right, yes, you will end up there sometime. So you want to make sure that you don't have to cross that bridge as well. And all like that.
Correct. True. No, it's very true. Kate, I end this part of the question with you too as well. What's going on with you guys?
Well, so we're looking at 3 positions, which does not seem like a large number of positions, but we're looking at a staff of 18. 18 people that cover 66 hours a week. that cover programming, that cover access to services, that cover just reference desks, checkout, keeping books on the shelves, ordering. I think Kenny once described me, and I can say this for every one of my coworkers, as keeping 6 people on the unemployment line. We, at 3 people, we are potentially looking at having to cut hours. We are potentially looking at falling below state minimum requirements. We are certainly at that point. Libraries in Massachusetts are actually required to be funded a certain amount from a municipality. We are brushing up against the very minimum before we have to start asking the state for waivers. I don't know if anyone has kind of looked at other communities that have passed overrides or who have requested overrides. There are now 75 municipalities in Massachusetts and growing that are asking for overrides. Many of them have discussed things like closing their library or strongly reducing. Once you've done that, once you've exhausted your waivers, or once you've violated state law in terms of governing libraries, it affects your school rating. It affects your tax base. It calls in loans on grants. We have consistently been cut since Prop 2.5 in 1981. 1981 was the first year when Malden had to meet the Prop 2.5 requirement, and we closed every one of Malden's branches. So all of the neighborhood library access that we provided to our citizens stopped. We cut paraprofessionals, we cut professionals, we consolidated everything to the main building in the downtown. At which point we made it more difficult for students to access information. We made it more difficult for people to seek services. We made it more difficult for people to just access free books. And every year since then, we have had additional cuts, because libraries are the first place when you are right-sizing a tax bill or a government that gets cut. So at this point, we are now 18 individuals covering 66 hours a week. We split the staff in half for Fridays and Saturdays, and we work 9-hour days. We are at the end of those cuts without consequences. And I think I can speak not just for us, but for most of the departments, that in the interest of keeping the bill as low as possible in Malden, we have all come up against those cuts and are now no longer able to reduce the workforce any lower without
Consequences.
without the public actively feeling those consequences. I think at this point, you know, one of the sort of controversies around the library is that we don't have the old building open enough. We don't have access to the art. We don't have access to local history. We don't have access to that beautiful Converse building. We'd need 5 more people to make that happen, because the footprint of that space is such that you could not staff it with the current humans that reside in that building for 9 to 9 Monday through Thursday and 9 to 6 Friday and Saturday without adding additional people. And that is without even just asking us to do things like have senior tech help and have more story times and just sit down and eat our lunches. So that's where we're at. We are now at the threshold where if you cut us any further, and if you cut the schools any further, and if you cut the fire department any further, there are drastic consequences to the people who are advocating for additional services at a reasonable price. You get me and my entire staff of 18 at the cost of one brand new James Patterson a year. That's what our budget takes, $26, and you get 18 people who will do literally almost anything you ask for free, which is exactly what folks who have paid into the system all along need more than anything. So that's what we're looking at.
If I can just add on to that, you may have remembered when we closed all of the K through 8 libraries.
Yep.
There's no longer a library at the Early Learning Center. The only school that has a library with an actual librarian in it is Malden High School, because they have to have one for accreditation. The library rooms sometimes are opened up for classes because we have media specialists that teach media literacy, but that is not the same as having a library and library services available in the schools to our students. So having any cuts to our public library here in Malden would be so detrimental to all of our students, because they will no longer have access to free books, which is huge. Books are expensive, and we have so many students who are economically disadvantaged, but it's also a safety issue. Kids need somewhere to go to study. The library is a safe place for them to do that after school. So there's a million reasons why we can't have any cuts.
And just to sit, and we're not only providing that service for the public schools, but we are also providing that service for the charter school, for the Catholic schools, for the, we are that hub. And honestly, and as much as books are obviously the part of my job I love the most, but we are a safe place for them to just exist.
Yes,
There is nowhere you can go in Malden, whether you are a senior or a child or an adult who just doesn't have any place to go, where you can just exist without having to buy a latte or to buy some French fries or to, we are that space for everybody. And at some point, we won't be able to be anymore. So
I think that was very well said, and you know, obviously I know I made the joke earlier, but I remember using the Malden Public Library when I was in law school too, right? Because I just remember being at home and it was so distracting, like, because I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm reading my, I think it was like contracts, and I'd be like, oh, you know what, I gotta go wash the dishes, and it's like, it was nice to just go into a spot that, like, it was quiet, it was peaceful. I was able to do a lot of studying in there, so yeah, so I mean, it's a huge, I know we drive by, especially in Malden, that we drive by such a beautiful building, but you don't realize that what you're saying, it's the hub, right? There's a lot that goes on in there. And I remember when I was on the school committee, and the former school committee member, Tara Beardsley, that was her big push too, right? Was for the librarians at that time. Because I think prior to us getting elected, I think in 2013, I think, it was either the year before or a couple of years earlier, that they had cut the librarians out of the K through 8s at that point. So, you know, it's, again, it's yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, you know, you guys kind of, I mean, we kind of went ahead, but you guys answered my other question. No, which is, listen, I got to tell you, I mean, this is great because, again, I think that it's I think, again, as I said, like, you know, as an outsider looking in, you don't realize that, right? You drive by any of the schools in Malden, you don't realize what's going on in there, right? You drive by the Malden Public Library and hearing what you were just saying, you know, how, like, everything is interconnected. You hear what's going on at the fire department, Massey. You know, you don't realize, again, as I keep saying this, and I know I said this earlier, but it's like you don't realize that how interconnected everything really is in the city. Like, it's a big puzzle. I know there's, like, individual pieces, but this is what makes up Malden, and just hearing how important and how many other services that are provided us, you know, beyond the perception of what we have of, you know, of your respective roles. So yeah, so that was a really good you know, topic, and I obviously don't end debate like that because I like to hear what everybody has to say. So I know we're staying with that and talking about, you know, again, what we're currently facing. So there are two proposals, I believe. There's a $5.4 million proposal on the board, and I believe there's also an $8.2 million, right? So I want to focus first on the $5.4 million proposal. I think I will start with, let's see, I'm trying to be respectful of getting everybody to talk first.
Don't worry, I'll get insulted if I go last.
Good, so I'll make you last every single time. How about that, Kenny?
Gives me more time to think of
Do you think about it? Okay, good. So, Calvin, I think I'll start with you on this one, and we're going to talk about the $5.4 million, right? So what level of funding, if that was to go through, what realistically would that mean for your organization and for your group?
Well, see, it's one of those things that you get all these offers of buying property and everything like that. Well, if you can't afford to live there, then you might have to do that, you know. I look at the town of Milton. People bought that property years ago. If they had to try to buy that property, they couldn't do it in that respect. And so you feel bad if somebody grew up here and they say, well, we can no longer live here because we can't afford it, and so they got to sell their property, and then the next person comes along. This will be the new Milton or something like that. The prices go up because it would surprise you to hear about a building that's only 1 story with dormers in the roof going for $1 million. Nobody bought that building. I mean, then not too far from there was another building that was 3 stories. It went for $1 million too, and all like that. How do you equate those things in that respect? But that's what will happen if the people cannot afford to stay in the building because of the taxes alone in that regard. Because just like everything else, when that goes up, the money that they have coming in, it doesn't go up. It still stays the same and everything like that. Yeah. And so that's it. That's the problem. And so you have to look at how much of that property tax is going to impact those individuals who, what else can they do? There's nothing else they can do. They don't have everything's being cut, everything's being downsized. You can't go anywhere to get anything. And so they may go to the library looking for grants, for a scholarship, something in that respect, because there's nothing available in that regard. So that's the one thing that you have to keep in the back of your mind, trying to see what can we do that, there may be a situation where you have fundraisers or something like that, because what else are you going to do? And because you can't make money when you're not working, and and if they cut things and the price of things go up, you can't afford that as well. So that's the thing that really is, that you think about all the time, because that could be me, that could be you in that regards. And so I may be able to deal with it for the time being, but you may not be able to. So if you say, oh, I can do it. And one time there was a city council meeting. One of the councilors said, well, they ought to live with their in-laws until they get enough money to buy a house. I wanted to say to him, give me the name of your in-laws so we can go live with them until we get enough money to buy a house. That was the Southern answer.
As a millennial, I object.
Well, imagine who made that comment. I have a feeling I know. Well, I'll tell you this. You know what? Unfortunately, I have no in-law. I mean, I don't think my in-laws would want. They'll probably take my daughter and my wife, but they won't take me. So I'm pretty much SOL on that one. So I mean, maybe my aunt, but I don't know. I think I have to do chores, which I'm not doing. I'm not earning my keep at that house. Sorry, Auntie. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
Work a second job coming home.
Kate, I turn, unless you want to go, unless you want a few more moments.
I forgot the question.
So then I'll ask Kate, and then I'll go right to you. Kate, I asked you that same question too. Staying with the $5.4 million, if it passes, what would this level of funding realistically mean for your department and for your organization?
Oh, great question. So I'm a resident. I live here. My father-in-law owns the house. I am actively involved in taxes, water, sewer, the whole shebang. Yes. For my department, we'd still be looking at cuts. We'd still be looking at cuts to the printing budget. And so the thing about the library budget is that Malden actually gets out of a lot of responsibilities. So the bulk of what Malden pays into the library is salaries. So 80% of our budget is salaries, because we have a private trust that keeps the lights on and the roof not leaking most of the time. And the general, the structure. So we would probably still be looking at personnel cuts, which means fewer services. We would probably also still be looking at things like cuts from just our general supplies budget, our the specialty books, the language books, the things that we buy outside in order to serve communities that are typically underserved. 5.4 million doesn't meet the needs that we are attempting to fulfill right now, which also then steals from residents. It steals from populations that don't have the cash to buy their books, that don't have the cash to print their own documents, that don't have the cash to own their own at-home computers, which makes their day-to-day prices escalate significantly. I mean, if you now need a computer and a printer at home in order to get your stuff done, and you need the education in order to use it, suddenly you're paying a private company, which is not going to attempt to keep your prices low. If you are just attempting to buy a book, you are already, if you're going to a used bookstore, you're looking at $5 or $6. If you're going to Barnes & Noble, you're looking at 18 to 25. Even with a Kindle, you are looking at $20 a month, which for somebody living on a budget, you have already exceeded what that 5.4 million is asking for you. I think data wise, they're looking at $30 or $40 a month. That's 2 books. You've hit it at 2 books. You've hit it at printing services at Staples. You've hit it at having to ask Jeeves, or I just 100% dated myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Or gone to Staples for tech support. If you've asked Geek Squad to help defrag your computer, suddenly, which you don't do anymore with a solid state drive. I realize that. But additionally, so anybody in the city of Malden that needs a service that we provide suddenly has less access to it, and then has to pay a private company that does not, in fact, want to make it cheap for you, ever. So the more services we can keep in this city with city employees, the better value for our community, whether it's plowing our streets and clearing our sidewalks, it's busing kids to school, it's literally just.
We don't have those.
We don't.
That was under.
That's a dream.
That was a long time ago.
That's
Sorry,
a dream
sorry.
for all of us. Or it's just providing the like baseline support to get you from point A to point B without having to pay somebody on the other side of a phone.
It's
I was
interesting.
going to say that you could go to the Museum of Fine Arts and get some of those individuals, so you can open up the other part of the building. The people will sit in there, don't touch that, leave that alone, and everything. And then, that way you preserve what you have there, and you open it up so people can at least go there and see and all like that.
Wednesdays 2 to 4, and Saturdays 2 to 4. Old building is open Mondays also 6 to 8. We have the YMCA, which is volunteering a bunch of children to provide access. But if folks wanted it open more than that, again, it's going to cost us some money. But it's the dream. I would love for people to be able to study in that old part of the building where it's nice and quiet. You can't spread us any thinner.
Right.
But at the very least, it's a place for someone to get warm in the winter and
Correct,
to cool
yes.
off in the
Correct,
summer.
correct.
And then if your hours are reduced, that's less hours they have to do that, which then
Correct.
puts a
It
strain
makes
on
everyone
us.
less safe.
Yeah,
And
correct.
we attempt to mirror a lot of our hours to places like the warming center, so that folks can leave us and go to the next warm location. And the police station only holds so many people. We have.
There's only one left in the city that holds 25 people a night.
That
And
is correct.
You have to get there at 4:30 to get a number, and they
Yep.
open up at 6:30.
Yep.
Wow.
Otherwise, we're the closest location in that regard to the T station, where people then use that to get to other places that may have a spot for them. So, I mean, that, again, the last free spot, and that costs again, $26 a tax bill. $26 a tax bill, and you can have all of these free things that you would have to pay a lot more money to get. We are the cost saving measure, and again, other departments are doing the same. We are not the only ones. You know, when the mayor talks about things like right sizing, like, we are all providing the cheapest price point
Right.
Yes.
for any service we are providing. Every person in this room is wearing 5 different hats in order to make sure that you are getting the absolute best services at the lowest price. You cannot get that from Amazon. You cannot get that from Microsoft. You cannot get that from Target or Barnes and Noble or any other. They're just not, it's just not available. The private business cannot match what you are getting in terms of value and in terms of access that your public workers. I mean, I can't even imagine what private fire service would look like, but I
God,
would
no.
prefer not to.
That's how we
I
started.
mean,
I wouldn't even want
that's
to
how
do
it
that either.
started,
Yeah.
and that was just piracy. I mean, the very earliest United States fire service was just like, hey, if you give us some money, we won't loot your house while it's on fire. And now we have people who will do that because they're invested. And that's true of teachers, that's true of librarians, that's true of pretty much everybody in the city. Nobody's making money working in public service. I do graphic design. I could make money doing graphic design. I
AI's got that
am
covered.
not doing that. What?
I said AI's got that covered.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Well, you know-
Garbage in, garbage out, my friend.
Well, you think, when you hear about it, and I just kind of wanted to follow up a little bit too on what you said earlier. Like, when you hear 5.4 million, right? You think
Yeah.
that's a lot of money. You say,
It
oh
is
yeah,
not.
that's
It's not.
But when you think about, right, to your point, and
It's less than 2.5% of the budget.
right,
Yeah.
and I think I'm safe to say that. What Kate just described, I think is going on where you are,
Yeah.
where you are, and some other departments that aren't here tonight, right, and across the city. And so, you sit here, and again, and I know that everybody has Facebook, right, or has been in contact with some people on the opposite side, right? And I think I'm safe to say this here, and I really don't care, because if somebody wants to inbox me later on, they can. That when you hear people say, "Oh yeah, well, that's a lot of money you're asking for," and it's like, you should be budgeting better, and it's like, yeah, all right, or it's like, yeah, 5.4 million should just get you where it is, and it's like, no, you don't realize that that's
Not
spread.
even getting to
Right.
where we
Across.
need to be.
Correct.
A
Yeah.
whole city.
Costs go up by more than 2.5% every year, and yet we're capped by that. And I think what's important to remember is, if, for example, 5.4 million passes, there's still going to be cuts. So people are going to be paying a tax bill regardless,
Right.
and not getting the services they need or deserve.
Right.
And that's the case whether 5.4 passes, whether even the higher number passes. There's still going to be, it's not going to be a boon of money.
Right.
But I would rather pay a higher tax bill and actually get something for the taxes I'm paying than pay a tax bill and get absolutely nothing for it.
Correct.
I agree. And so I guess I'll turn to you. I mean, talk to me about what 5.4 mil. If this passes, what are we talking about here in the Malden public school system at this point?
That's a great question, one that no one has yet to really answer.
Well, I already answered it at the last open forum meeting. The schools aren't being.
Oh, well, we've been told to buckle up. Because there will be some kind of cuts, whether it's
It's
to
probably-
personnel.
It's probably like
We already don't get supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers and education support professionals fund their own classrooms. Most
Yep.
people don't pay to go to work. Educators pay to go to work.
With no reimbursement.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
I think
not.
that's people should. People may say, "Oh yeah, well, if you go and put it on your own credit card, you can submit the receipt and get it back." Well,
No, we don't get reimbursed, and actually, the tax credit is only up to I think $250. It's a very minimal
Yeah.
amount of money that you can actually claim. But I think we have to think about the fallout. Like, if the library is having services cut, that directly impacts our students and their families. If fire and other public safety have any cuts, that directly impacts the safety of our schools and the safety of our students at home. It impacts the safety of every single person who drives or walks through the city of Malden
Yep.
every day, 24 hours a day. And I don't think anyone wants to see less safe schools, but if we're looking at increased response times, God forbid there was an emergency at one of the schools, what would that look like with increased response times and not as many people responding, whether it's police, fire, or both? I don't even want to think about it. It's so scary.
I agree. Kenny, gave you enough time to think about your answer.
I mean, 5.4 million, and we're looking at 15 firefighters cut, and then we're not even talking about the 8.2 number. That's scary.
Which I was just gonna say. Which, as you guys are all talking, I'm thinking that I'm like, even hearing that 5.4, and we haven't even gotten to the next number, what that's going to look like, and still hearing that there's still going to be potential cuts, right? Or there are going to be cuts.
I'm not confident with my wiring in my home, so please let's not do that.
So when you think about it, when I first got wind that our shortfall was at 5.4 million, I did quick math, which I'm not really great at math. I got the number 16. Yeah. So I thought our number was 16, so I was within one. I think what we need to talk about is that Malden is just over 5 square miles, and we have approximately 70,000 people living in 5 square miles. We're the 6th most densest populated city in the state, and we're in the top 100. So when you look at it that way, it gets even scarier.
Yeah.
It's not like you live in Melrose where there's 15 feet in between each house. We're built right on top of each other. With less firefighters, there's a chance that now, instead of one building being contained to that one, now you might have 2 or 3 like they do in Chelsea. It's not any fault of their fire department, it's just that building code back then allowed these buildings to be built 5 feet away from each other. When I hear we have a $5.4 million or an $8.2 million shortfall, I think of the one piece we have left to replace, and that will cost approximately anywhere from $1.2 to $1.4 million. 10 years ago, that same piece was costing us $650,000. A ladder truck right now, we were buying them 10 years ago for about $750,000. Right now, you're looking anywhere from 1.75 to excess to probably $3 million. So the gear that we wear, I sat in a meeting last week, and with the manufacturer, there was a bill passed not too long ago that says that we can't have PFAS in our gear, which is what's giving us cancer. So the fluoride free, because there's no such thing as PFAS free, because PFAS is in your drinking water, and as soon as you wash it, now there's PFAS into it now. The same gear we bought this year is going to cost about anywhere from $20,000 to $22,000 more.
Wow.
So when I think shortfall, I think of what we're not going to get. The one piece that is the oldest is Engine 1, which runs right here out of Salem Street, the center house. I remember it was the first one to drive it. That was many, many moons ago, over 10 years ago, and your average piece life expectancy is about 10 years. I'll give the mayor credit. He's definitely started replacing them when we needed to them, but now it's going to be more of a decision. Yes, we can take a loan out, but that's still money taking off the table. People, I read Facebook just like you. I've heard, how many of them live in Malden? I hear, just that to manage the budget better. Well, when the price of groceries a year ago, or let's say during COVID, you can go get $100 worth of groceries and come out with a basket full of groceries, and now you spend $200 and come out with 4 bags. Now look at that at a $200 million budget.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what we're talking about. I've sat in the city council meetings when people say, well, why do we need flowers here? Why do we need this here? Well, do you really want to live in a city that doesn't have areas of beauty? You know what I mean? Like, when you're talking about $200 million budget, I don't mean to sound like it doesn't matter, but $100 here and $5,000 here isn't going to fix the budget.
Yeah.
And you're taking away from the beauty of the city. And the city does have beautiful spots.
Yeah. No, all well points, and again, I go back to we read the tea leaves, right? And I think one thing I wanted to follow up with what you said too, which is I also have read too when people say, just cut City Hall, this is why you pay too many people, and I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, I'm like, so Okay, I mean, I know I have to be very careful how I phrase what I'm about to say next, but it's not that simple, right? It's really not that simple when you just say just cut these salaries and then you just close the gap. It's not. To your point, 10 years ago, those the costs were under $1 million. 10 years later, they're going up and they keep rising up, whether it's due to shortage of products, whatever's going on politically, whatever's going on, other external factors that are contributing to this. But I don't think that people are taking into account that, yes, everything is getting expensive. No matter what,
labor is expensive.
Yeah.
Everything is getting expensive.
I mean, I'll talk about my contract. This was the first time we were made whole. We were well below the area's average. Mayor finally realized that and agreed to up our salaries to what everyone else is around us is getting. We were working in Malden for pennies on the dollar what everyone else is getting. And they have the same problems as everyone else does. How do I put food on my family? How do I afford rent? Health, health insurance rising. I'm like, yes, the city pays, but so do we. And then they talk about pensions. Well, people don't realize that my pension works because everyone else that's here right now is paying into it. And then when I retire, someone replaces me and pays in that pension and pays for me to be retired.
Right.
I mean, before this all came out, we were close to being almost 94% funded, which is probably some of the highest funding and pension in the area. It's scary because I think that when you live in a community, you also bear the burden of paying for it.
Yeah.
Yes, no one likes to pay for insurance, but you pay for it anyways, and that goes up every year. And do you call your insurance company and yell at them?
I did last year.
Did you get anywhere?
Nope. They actually told me
Fair.
I gave you all the discounts. I remember I said, "Are you kidding me right now?" My car insurance, and I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Tell me how this makes sense." I go, "I have a flawless driving record." I go, I haven't done anything. I go, I know I live in Malden, which Malden is relatively expensive compared to some of the other communities that you
Wait
can
till they
garage.
bonus 15 police officers off the road.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
car
that's-
insurance is going to go through.
Well, that's
the
what I'm talking
roof.
about. My car insurance. Sorry, that's what I meant. My car insurance. Like I said, at one time I remember when I was probably 21, which is whatever, some time ago.
A minute.
A minute ago, yeah, a minute ago. Listen, I keep seeing everything on Facebook. You talk about seeing things on Facebook. I see the videos of people saying people in their people who are millennials, and it's like Jason chasing after them and said like, "Here comes 40." So I'm just kind of still trying to wrap my head around that.
Oh, friends.
But anyways, when I was 21, I do remember that my car insurance was relatively affordable at that time, right? And this is going back some years. But now I'm an older driver. I am, no accidents, knock on wood. I'm a safe driver. And my car insurance keeps going up. And to your point, yes, I did actually call my car insurance company and I said, "What's going on?" I said, "Why does my thing keep going up?" I go, I don't, I'm at the best step, I think. Shouldn't it be going down? And the agent told me, yeah, it's actually the cheapest with all the discounts that you have, and home and auto have been bundled together. And I said, wow, I go, I have the same car insurance that somebody who had multiple car accidents would be paying right now. And I go, how does this make sense? So,
Well, and I think this is the discussion we're having about the tax rate, is that private industry it is not in their best interest to have things, to cut things in a way that benefits the consumer. Government consistently attempts to cut things in order to benefit the community, the consumer in this particular instance. And I think what we are now coming up against is that those cuts have historically gone on to a point where now we need to ask the taxpayer to help to make up that gap. I mean, a great example, much like your car insurance is, so this is my second pair of these fabulous glasses that I purchased online. The last time when my prescription was nicer and less aggressive, these were $40. Tariffs made these $120. Yeah, that's a 4-year difference.
150, same thing.
Yeah,
online.
so I
I'm
like
okay.
that,
Oh my
and
God.
that has extended across the spectrum of everything that we are purchasing. that is what is affecting the city. That is what is affecting the library, the schools, the fire department. Everything is costing us more. But we have been set at a limit that does not flex with that. And so what we are asking people is to, because we cannot cut any further, is to just give a little bit on that amount in order to try to catch up to where we're at.
But I do, to go with what Calvin was saying,
Yeah.
but I do believe there should be some type of process in the city if you can't afford, or you can prove that you couldn't afford
100%.
to pay your you know, your housing tax or real estate tax, that they should have ability to abate.
Well,
I
they
like this
do,
progressive taxing.
but they do.
My heart.
However, that program was taken away.
I understand.
You know, in that respect. So there was, people would go and work for City Hall or, you know, for a period of time, and then they would get some money off of their taxes. But then they needed that money, and they said no more.
Yeah, I mean, they did go from 30 to 35%, and I can tell you that does take the hit of the 350 for the 5.4 and the 550 for the 8.2 a little bit. It makes it a little it hurts definitely a lot less.
Right.
But it's still going to be creating a lot of hardships.
Yeah.
And we're not sitting here. We do think of that. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
it's the people that have the means that just don't want to pay, which is the problem.
Yeah.
You know, I also have a problem with people that are getting the discount and still have a problem with the override. You know, they voted the 35% in a week after they voted the override to go through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I thought the spectra, the optics on it was not really the best, but they did it. And they proved that it wouldn't be a cost. They're pushing it on to the owner, the non-owner occupied owners of the city.
Yeah.
You know, but the problem with that is that they could all move out too.
So I'm going to jump down to my next question, which is, what would let's see, what would be the comparison? What would the residents notice if there was, I should say, comparatively, right? So let's say 8.2 passes, 5.4, and I'm just going to open this up for discussion. So whoever wants to jump in.
I think it might be easier to say if neither one passes, what would be the number?
Yeah.
You want to go that one?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Because what happens
Let's do
is that we don't even have the numbers for the 8.2.
Yep.
We don't even have a
No.
plan for the 8.2. And it's much easier to go the differences between, you know, yes or no.
Let's jump into it then. All right. That was actually going to be my next one, and I think you can read my question.
I have to take my glasses off to read.
To read
that.
this? Oh, no way. All right, fine. All right, so let's jump into it, Kenny. So I'm going to start with you then. If neither passes, what are we looking at here?
Well,
And I should say, not only, let me actually ask that in a better way. If neither passes, what are going to be some of the immediate steps that your department, and this is for everybody, your organizations, your departments, what are the steps they're going to have to take? And what is something that the residents are going to notice first if that happens? Or when that, I should say if that happens, not when. Go ahead.
So I asked the assistant chief this the other day, and I go, is there a plan? And they haven't came up with a plan yet. But it's either taking an engine out of service or a ladder truck out of service, because it takes 12 members of the Malden Fire Department to staff that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're going to be doing more with less. The calls are still going to be coming in, and we're still going to be required to go on them. It's not like we can just sit back and say, oh, it's not my problem anymore. The citizens will notice possibly a greater response time. There's multiple times a day where all the engines and all the trucks are on medical aids, or a box alarm, or a gas leak, or a MVA, or, you know,
What's an MVA?
a motor vehicle accident.
Thank you. For those who were like, what is that? Montana
Down
Valley
power lines, you know
Association?
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't even want to think about it, you know, because when you're on an engine and you're doing 25 calls a day, and you tell me I'm gonna have to do 30 to 35 calls a day, that's not something I don't want to swallow at all. You're looking at firefighter fatigue, which is a real thing.
Yeah.
You're looking at more injuries. You're looking at burnout, which equals more sick time, which equals more overtime money. So as the snowball goes down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger. So yes, this $350 tax increase or the $550 tax increase could be a lot more.
Yeah.
And then let's just say they have no money to put in our overtime budget, and now they have to brown out. And now let's say they can't man or staff an engine or a truck, and they brown out at that. Now that pushes all the responsibility on whatever's left. So it's scary. You know, when my job, I rely on the guy next to me. He relies on the guy next to him. And when you're saying you're taking people off, that means someone might not be going home. A resident might not live. And then when you think of it as a whole, what's a human life cost?
Right.
And I'm not saying just firefighters, I'm saying the residents. You know, we all said yes to this job. We all know that it's a dangerous job. We're all well aware of it. But at what cost? You know, and do we want another Fall River?
You didn't ask to go into a job where it's constantly, the department's being divested from,
Right.
and making it unsafe for all of you and
There-
unsafe for the whole community.
There is a NFPA standard out there. It's NFPA 1710. And in Massachusetts, you don't have to follow these standards. You have to adapt them, or adopt them, sorry. And we just don't, because the cost of it is ridiculous.
I know. Well, one of the things about it is that sometimes you put things in perspective. Who responds when they get a 911 call and everything like that? Who responds first?
We're normally there first.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Sometimes the
It's-
cops, I'm not going to knock the cops.
No, I
off,
know.
but
Yeah.
Right, but that's
Sometimes-
They're not here.
9
to
out of
see-
10.
Yeah, I was gonna say
9 out of 10.
Right.
They beat us because
I
they're around the
know.
corner.
Right.
You go, so you get us, you get
Yep.
the police, and you
before
get
the
an ambulance.
EMTs and all like
Well,
that.
the EMTs sometimes are coming from Somerville, they're coming from Mass General, they're coming from because
Right.
right now, the biggest burden is on EMS. You know,
Yep.
that we went through a time where an average wait time was probably 10 to 12 minutes to see an ambulance.
Wow.
All right, and when someone having a cardiovascular event,
That's a long time
that's
for
a long
CPR.
time. That's
Yes.
between life or death.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's, see, sometimes you put things in perspective because you can even talk about library services. What do they do? What do they provide? They oh, this is that. You know, they don't think about it. But there are a lot of things that they would not even have or wouldn't even have access to if it wasn't available in that respect. And so those are things that, you know, that's I sometimes wish they would advertise or let people know that these are the things that affect you, even if you do know that some of those things that are necessary and not look to, you know, with the handout looking for money or something like that, that volunteering can, who knows where it will end up, you know, because you have things being done and taken care of that will not need a license or requirements or something like that. If they're trained what to do, it's almost in a sense an expanded candy striper's job, you know, and everything like that.
I love the idea of volunteers. I do. And we have some wonderful volunteers who do some wonderful things. It's a consistency.
Right, I know.
And when things are on the, like, we have volunteers that guide people around the
yeah.
art museum when they're there.
Right.
We have volunteers who shelf for us, or who shelf read for us, until you're looking for Virginia Woolf and the W's are somewhere down in the X's.
Right.
Volunteers are lovely. They, unfortunately, for most of us, don't meet the very
understand.
niche needs that Malden has, which are language access, which are medical services, which are, you know, access to legal libraries, those sorts of things. And unfortunately, so currently right now I'm redoing our library card application. in a way that makes it translatable, and drawing on my expertise within languages to be like, oh, telephone is the better word, or like receipt or due date slip is a badly because
Right.
slip means 18 different things that most of them are undergarments.
That's a turn I didn't expect.
Yeah,
I
me
knew I
neither.
was gonna. Hello, hi friends. I'm fine.
Me either. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that makes.
So
Petticoat will
volunteers
come
are
into-
lovely, but a lot of times what we all do requires some
I know.
advanced training, and it's hard to get people to show up when those are the requests.
Right.
It's hard to get someone to show up when you're like, hey friend, could you go into the stacks and see if anyone's pooped there? Which is unfortunately one of my many jobs. But yes, we need more community investment, and sometimes that is having people show up and just participate, which is always.
Right.
But what we also need to do is compensate people for the hard work that they're doing and help to support the job that they're doing
Yes.
with the kinds of staffing and the kinds of resources and a printer that doesn't shut off every time you look at it funny, and all of those other
Malden
things.
deserves that.
Sounds
I
like, sounds like my
deserve
printer.
a real printer, guys.
Yeah.
I
Sounds-
deserve a real printer.
But I guess so. Good segue, right? And again, I think that everybody, I think that everybody, if this doesn't pass, that the city does face these challenges, right? So, and I guess I kind of want to flesh out a little bit more, right? So, Kate or Deb, whoever wants to jump in, what does it look like for your areas, right? I mean, I know you're saying that you wear so many different hats, and because it now sticks on my mind, and I'm, the poop thing, right? If somebody poops in one of the, but I mean, obviously, I know I'm kind of like just.
Yeah.
Don't call me.
What? Yeah.
I'm
But what does it look like? I mean, what does this look like?
I'm
in your
going to
individual
say the
areas?
quiet part out loud on this. So while the schools aren't necessarily listed for cuts, we look at the dismantling of the federal Department of Education, which is removing nearly all of the grants that our schools in Malden receive. We are heavily federal grant funded, right? Those go away, and God forbid this override doesn't pass. It's going to hit the school department, and it's also going to hit all the other departments even harder, because the way that public school funding works, and I know you know this, the Chapter 70 Chapter 70 is very flawed.
Well, it's changed now since I was on.
And it's better, but it's not where it should be.
Yeah.
If a district doesn't meet what's called net school spending, they get penalized. Malden has been penalized more than once in the last 10 years for not meeting net school spending, according to the Chapter 70 formula. So they're spending all this money, but then they're having to pay $1 million here, $1 million there, because they're not meeting that spending. And I fear for what happens if we're heavily relying on federal grants, and God forbid this override doesn't pass. It's going to be devastating to the entire city, not just the school department, because that is millions upon millions of dollars.
And more people falling through the cracks.
Yes.
Which then fall on other social services within how many kids are we going to see on calls? How many kids are we going to see in the library? I mean, we're already handing out snacks every afternoon to make sure that everybody has additional nutrition.
Right.
How many of those people are going to continue to fall on City Hall, on the police station, on the fire station? How many of those kids are going to seek services another way? How many of our seniors are going to be needing additional services that we can't offer? That we're kicking in our own snacks right now. If you need a rice cracker, boy, do I have them for you.
And that happens regularly in our schools too.
Yeah.
Teachers and education support professionals are regularly making sure kids have food to go home with, and that's not purchased by the city of Malden or any of the grants. That's coming out of people's pockets, and we want to, provide mutual aid for people. But the reality is we should not have to, and passing this override would help keep kids fed, seniors safe, the community safe, the people who are delivering life-saving care like firefighters, keeping them safe on the job, as well as the broader community.
Speaking
I know.
about food, I'd like to clarify something.
Sure.
So, Malden doesn't pay for the food that we eat. So when you see us at Stop and Shop, we're actually paying for that.
Yes.
Yes.
We cook. We're there for 24 hours, and because we get approached a lot.
Oh, I've heard my friends who are on, who will remain nameless, but they've told me when they've parked at the Stop and Shop down the street, and residents will come up to them and basically berate them, right, and just like say all sorts of nasty things, and I'm
Yeah.
like, really? I'm like, but, and now listening to this, and I don't want to cut you off, but it's almost like, yeah, it's like it's easy to berate somebody, but when you need them, guess who you're calling? You're
Right.
you know you're
Yeah.
It's
that same person you just
we're not
yelled
out
at.
of service shopping. We're in service. I've left that carriage multiple times, sometimes in a day.
Right.
Well,
So-
see, it's just like I always wished that we could take advantage of New England coffee and bring the coffee and become either a Starbucks or Barnes and Nobles at the library in terms of, because this is history. McDonald's used to be on the corner of Maplewood and Eastern Avenue. A lot of seniors used to go there and nurse that cup of coffee. Then they
Yeah.
move it all the way over to Broadway. That takes a hike getting over there
Yeah.
from where
It's out
they're
of the
doing
way.
it and things like that.
At 8
if-
o'clock, it'll take you 20 minutes to
Right,
get there from.
I know.
from
And so,
school.
but if they had something like that at the library, then they may come and do that there, and everything like that. So you think about things that will help and benefit somebody, but then you still need help from them being able to do that sort of thing in that respect, in terms of volunteering, getting the coffee there for them and all like that.
And,
So, I
and
was gonna
just
say
a
this
staff
is
member
last
that
point on that.
transports
Yes.
the rats, the mice, the bats out of the building.
Yes.
We would need additional support in that as
We've,
well.
we've seen her do that.
I have I transported a mouse out of City Hall.
You're a
Yes.
braver person
that
than me,
is-
because I gotta tell you right now, I'm not afraid of a lot of things, but I see a little mouse
Same.
scurry right across me,
Same.
I'm all set.
Listen,
And we do allow beverages in the library
Right,
now, but I'm
District-
always like, hey
District
guys, I
one
don't
is
want to fight a rat today, so
120-something years
keep
old.
it.
probably infested. Oh,
There's a lot of mice in that thing.
Yeah.
God. So,
There-
sorry.
Oh, no,
I was
go
going
ahead.
to say, I'm actually getting up, as much as I want to continue this, and I wish we had like 3 hours to talk to you, because I do feel like there's still a lot that I never even really got to ask. And
I understand.
I should tell you, one of my biggest fears anytime I do this is I'm like, I hope I have enough questions to ask everybody, and I hope people will talk instead of us
No.
being like, so how do you feel about the weather today? And they're like,
Right.
good. You're like, all right. You're like, well.
I know, yeah.
So we're right up against it, which this has been a great discussion. I must say, thank you guys. My last question for everybody, and again, and this is just to throw this out there for everybody. I know we've had a lot, we've talked about a lot, but what is one last point that you want to make that the voters and the residents should know about this Prop 2 override? Whether it's, if it passes, this is what we're looking at, or if it doesn't pass, are there any last minute things that you would want the people of Malden to know before we end our roundtable discussion tonight?
I would love to address one of the arguments that I have seen on the internet, because why not?
Listen, I opened the door for that. So.
I know. Oh, the internet. Is that no one is making any cuts to make this possible, and that no one is making any sacrifices. And I know the three of us at this table sat for 5 weeks, 4 weeks,
I think it was more than that.
6 weeks. I don't know, an interminable amount of time, so that the employees of the city of Malden could agree to take a cut in their health benefits. And as we know, health benefits are wildly expensive in America and also inadequate. And we took that cut in order to reduce the burden on the people that we serve. And we all know what the score is in that, because we see the people who are struggling and we help the people who are struggling. Everyone at this table helps the people who are paycheck to paycheck, check to check, whether it's a pension check or whether it's Social Security or whatever. We know what things cost, and we know how hard it is to make ends meet. And we took that cut to meet people where they were at. And I think that it's important to understand that no one at our level or even above us is ignorant of that fact and hasn't cut where they absolutely could. And I have seen that claim a lot, that nobody has taken a hit or nobody has sacrificed. And I would like to point that year over year for the last 44 years, for the last 44 years, each of our departments, each of our constituents has taken those cuts in order to make this a place where people could continue to reside and grow and be successful. And what we are now asking is that people take a little step in our direction, because we can't go any further. Because all of the invisible cuts are over. We are now at the less invisible cuts, the cuts where you're like, why has it been 6 days since my street has been plowed? Oh, because there are like 7 people plowing and we can't afford to pay private contractors to do it any longer. That's where we're at. And so, but to pretend like we haven't felt it and we haven't experienced it and we haven't sacrificed for it is untrue, and denigrates the hard work that everybody in our city has done, whether they are a taxpayer or whether they are a municipal employee. And so I think in the interest of honesty, we need to look at what sacrifices we can all make together to get through this next chapter, and how we can all mutually support each other so that we actually live in a society and not a me first and a gimme. So that's my piece on that one.
Well, you know, it's just like I volunteer a lot in that regards. In this place, they threw a Thanksgiving dinner for homeless people. And I sat down and talked with an individual. He was homeless. But he was just like anybody else. He was living from paycheck to paycheck, and something happened, and he wound up. He didn't intend to do that. Nobody looks to say, "Oh, I feel like I want to be homeless." And all
I've only
that.
met one person in my 29-year career that was homeless on purpose.
There are people who would rather be outside than to be inside. But see, you don't quite get that because we're too used to turning on the light, turning up the heat, turning on the television, turning on the light, going to the bathroom inside the house, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Not getting rained on.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and all like
snowed
that.
on,
Or snowed on.
Really, you know, and so that's what you sometimes don't look at, that could be you, you know, and all like that. Right now it's not, but it could be you, you know, because when things go up and you're making the minimum at that point, well, if it goes up again and you're doing this, you can't go up like that, and so henceforth, that could be you out there, and and that's what you look at. While you're able to, you do all that you can do in that respect, so it doesn't come to that point in that regard.
Yeah.
You know,
Deb, Kenny, last.
So, I mean, we live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, right? And when I think about the word Commonwealth, I think about the fact that we shouldn't be living in a me first society where we're all siloed and just looking out for ourselves and the people immediately attached to us. And to be able to look out for the common good of the community, we have to fund those things. If we don't fund them through taxes, you are going to fund them from your bank account some other way. It's going to cost more, and the only thing that's happening is then lining the pockets of like private equity firms or private businesses, and that does not come back in the same way as the investment in paying taxes for public services, common goods does. I want to continue to work in a city where our students are safe, our educators are safe, our police and fire are safe, seniors are safe, teenagers, librarians, DPW, whoever it is, everyone here that works here or lives here or travels through the city should be safe. We live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We can and we should do better, and the people in Malden deserve to have, at the very least, level services, but they deserve more than that.
They do.
Okay.
Well, since we're talking about Facebook, I've read a couple of times as, you know, why have we been cutting up to now? Well, I know last month that we got $50,000 taken out of our budget, and I believe it went throughout the city. So he has been taking money. And that's money that comes out of our training budget. That's money that trains these firefighters to be better firefighters. And now, once again, we're doing more with less. And that's pretty much Malden's
Right.
cry for the last,
Yeah.
I don't know, 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you think about it, from 2000 to 2024, our call volume, like I said earlier, has been up 33%. We've reduced the number of firefighters by 15%. When I got hired in 2004, I had 122 firefighters, and now we're at 108. We had a rescue in service. We don't have a rescue anymore. These are the things we lose when budgets have to get cut. And these are things that, tools in my toolbox and tools that every other firefighter in this community needs. And it's scary to think what it would be like without these individuals standing behind me.
Understood. All right. Well, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for the in-depth and really and open and honest conversation. Very thoughtful. Thank you guys again for joining me tonight and taking time out of your busy schedules to be here and hang out with me. And I hope I didn't disappoint. I hope if you guys were expecting fist banging on the table, well, I'm not that guy. I'm just here to hopefully facilitate the
I
conversation.
was really hoping the nose would be in the room.
I know.
You know what? We are working on getting that, as a matter of fact. And so I will look right directly to this camera and say, look, if you are on the no side of things, I can be reached at president@Umaverse. I'm going to hope that Aaliyah will put the email at the bottom of this once this airs. But if you're interested in joining on a roundtable discussion, I would love to hear. I mean, again, it's part of the community access television station. And I should say, too, even on our end, too, we are also facing cuts as well, too. As you know, community arts is under a massive attack.
Mm-hmm.
And even just going through what we just had to go through, and it was tough as a board president having to make really hard decisions on, basically very similar, not to the degree that you guys have had, but we still had to make some very similar decisions as well too, and very tough decisions on our organization. And so, but hopefully while we're still here, and I say that jokingly, but at the same time, not really jokingly, because we don't know what to expect, right? But as part of our community access television station, not only do we want to give the yes side, a time to talk, we also want to hear from the no side, and then anybody else that might be interested. And so that's why I'm saying, and I'm looking directly at you, Malden, and wherever else my voice will reach, and Facebook world, and wherever Facebook forums I'll end up, that you can reach out and email me, president@umaverse.org, and I would love to have you come down and love to have a few people on the no side talk about why they're voting against it, right? And I would like to hear that. And I think that we have to give due time. And again, while educating, right? And one thing I've always learned from when I was running for office and any other positions I've ever had in my life, that you always got to be willing to hear what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so my hope is, and I know that sometimes that obviously with these roundtable discussions, you hope that there are opposing views, but sometimes I necessarily don't think that that's also appropriate. Not appropriate, but sometimes not helpful, because then sometimes I think what gets lost is the points, everybody starts talking over each other, the points get lost, and so I kind of like this forum a little bit better. Maybe one day I'll change my mind about that, but in my experience is that what I hope, though, is that people who watch this and who hopefully watch the next video that we do have a better understanding and a better thought process, right? So they may have said, and again, when I was running for politics and other various offices and my other jobs, is that sometimes you have one notion in your head, and then you have to hearing from the other side, you say, oh, you know what, I didn't even think about it like that. Now this kind of gave me a new perspective on how to feel. And so that's what the goal of all of this is, to hopefully, look, it's fine if you still decide to vote one way or another, but I'm just hoping that we're trying to do our part in trying to give the most neutral and also most informative representation, thoughtful responses, anything that's very positive. So
We'll get you Jerry Springer's number.
Oh,
okay, never mind. Sorry.
Where
Love to
is
see
my
these two go at
Oh
it.
yeah.
The nose. I'm sure they can take it.
Oh, listen. There's no doubt, because from what I see on Facebook, I have no doubt. I know, and Deb too as well. For many years, there's no doubt I know that Deb can handle herself. So I was more afraid for the other people. That's why I didn't feel like holding Deb back.
Right.
So.
Probably a good choice.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a tough guy. I don't feel
But
like
I'm telling you right now,
My memory's on her too. All right. Listen,
Oh,
it's-
the library
it's like
doesn't
the
mess
it's like the
around.
tag team going
She's
on.
a football fantasy sleeper.
Ah, one of those, huh?
Yeah.
You're like, oh no, I don't really. So anyway, so. All
Hey,
right.
I can talk a drunk out of a building like anybody.
God bless you. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for being here.
thank you.
Thank you for tuning
Thank
in
you.
and thank you for watching. Please share. Please comment. Please keep the comments respectful. Obviously, though, I must ask that. And hope to see you here and with our next roundtable discussion. And I think obviously it's important that with this that you remember that March 31st is the Prop 2 override vote. So you do what you want with that information. I guess is probably the best way to leave it. So thank you again, guys. Thank you again,
Thank you.
everybody,
Thank you.
for coming
All
here.
right.
Have a great night.